Welcome back, everyone, to Day 7 of EEI's 5th Annual Global Electrification Forum, or GEF. If you are just joining us today, my name is Vanessa Ferrero, and I'm a manager for international programs at EEI. I'll be your MC throughout the GEF. Today's sessions focus on the customers and the businesses of the future, with two panels considering what our energy systems will look like in 2050. To meet new and changing customer expectations, electric companies are developing innovative customer solutions, providing options to switch to cleaner energy sources, and enhancing communications and transparency. Our first panel session will consider the various initiatives the electric power industry is taking to transform its relationship with customers and better serve the customer of tomorrow. This panel features Robert Wilhite of Black & Veatch, Wayne O'Connor of NMAX, Ibrahim Al-Jarbu of National Grid Saudi Arabia, and Anna Borg of Vattenfall. The session will be moderated by Bob Rowe, CEO of Northwestern Energy. Without further ado, please welcome the panel to the stage for our first session of the day, Serving the Customer of Tomorrow.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to an extraordinary event. I want to start by thanking our mentor, Lawrence Jones. Dr. Jones is a friend, really, and an inspiration to all of us. I first met Lawrence a number of years before he joined EEI, and I always looked forward to him standing up in the audience, asking the most provocative question, looking the furthest out over the horizon. Many of us have become friends as well as colleagues over the years, thanks to Lawrence and EEI hosting the Global Electrification Forum in person in Washington, D.C. The restructuring of this meeting, the redesign to provide this online true global forum has been remarkable. There are as many as 800 or 900 registrants to this conference overall, and each of the individual sessions has attracted several hundred participants. So again, welcome. This truly is a global conversation that we will have this morning. I'm Bob Rowe, the CEO of Northwestern Energy. We're an electric and gas utility serving in the Rocky Mountains and Great Plains, just below the Canadian border. Our topic today, of course, is serving the customer of tomorrow today. And our global panelists include Robert Wilhite. He's the Senior Vice President and Managing Director of Global Distribution at Black & Veatch, located in the United States. My neighbor, just 6 hours to the north along the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains, is Wayne O'Connor. He's the President and CEO of NMAX, headquartered in Calgary, but with very diverse operations. Next, all the way across the globe, to Ibrahim Al-Jarbu. He's the CEO of National Grid of Saudi Arabia. Ibrahim, welcome and thank you for joining us. And then finally, Anna Borg, who is the CEO of Vattenfall in Sweden. And Anna is also going to be participating in President Biden's climate summit this Friday. I've had a chance to look at all of your web pages, and I've really been struck by how each of you communicate with your customer and how you communicate your vision of where you're going in ways that are appropriate to your customers, appropriate to the markets and the countries that you serve. To set the tone, I'm going to read a quote that certainly is provocative, and this is from a book by the CEO of Vivaldi, Interaction Field. And his statement is: no matter what customers buy today, they want everything at the speed of Amazon, with the accuracy of Google search result, the ease and zero-click convenience of Domino's pizza order, and everyday low prices of Walmart, the personalization of Netflix, and the charm of Singapore Airlines. So each of you, typically in a quite regulated environment, are trying to effectively, from the customer perspective, compete with Amazon, Google, Domino's, Netflix, Walmart, and Singapore Airlines. That's an extraordinary challenge. So you all bring a unique perspective, different parts of the globe again. And as you think about meeting today's needs while preparing for tomorrow's needs, give us some insight. And if you start by just saying a little bit about your own role and your own company. And Rob, you work with a number of companies around the globe. Let's start with you. Rob, you are on mute.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks to EEI and to Dr. Jones. It's a pleasure to be here today, at least virtually. And I am currently at a customer location, hence the plainness of the wall behind me. So otherwise, I would say that one of the things that I do need to explain, first of all, is that the part of the power sector that I focus on is primarily around distributed energy and power distribution for utilities. And as one of the non-utility participants on this panel, I will say that I'm part of the disruption and part of the mitigation to some of that disruption. So let me explain. On the disruption side, we are serving customers with microgrid systems. We design, build, construct, and even maintain those systems, be it distributed solar for commercial buildings, whether it's on the roof or ground mounted. We work with distributed battery systems, microgrids, and even EV charging infrastructure. So that's more on the disruption side of the business. And it certainly becomes more of a disruption as those kind of devices interconnect to the power distribution grid for use. And the power distribution side of their business, helping them with system upgrades, helping them with making their systems ready to accommodate the interaction of those distributed energy resources. So my views today, I will reflect both the utility side that I work with and have been in this industry for 36 years, but also the commercial and industrial customer side. And those needs are rapidly evolving, particularly in the pandemic. In fact, I would think that there may be permanent demand shifts occurring in the commercial industrial sectors associated with the way they view energy, sustainability, and decarbonization of their supply chains. So I'll, at some point, as we go through some additional questions today, Bob, I promise to refer to the terms blockchain and digital twins and innovative concepts like that, because we are really using these technologies today in real time. And I'll provide some examples as we go through this panel today. Thank you.
So Rob, you participate in the disruption and you also help us identify the solutions. Thank you for that. Wayne, last March, just before we all closed down for COVID, I was driving around the Canadian Rockies just to your west, going from ski adventure to ski adventure. And as soon as the border reopens, I intend to come right back. Wayne, how are you handling all this?
Well, it's great to be here, and thank you to EEI for hosting this. I'm really excited to be here and representing NMAX. Just a few words about the company before I jump in. So we're headquartered here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. We have both utility businesses, but also unregulated businesses. In Alberta, we have generation of just over 1,500 megawatts, a combination of gas and wind, natural gas and wind. We have the utility here in Calgary, T&D utility that serves the people of Calgary, but we also serve Albertans with both electricity and natural gas. And in the state of Maine, we have a T&D utility there that serves customers in the northern and eastern part of the state. So active obviously in both Canada and the US. And so just let me start by saying that we're very fortunate to be in the electricity business, as I believe we're upon the dawn of an exciting new era for electricity. It's clear that customers, shareholders, and governments want a future that produces lower carbon. And the best way to achieve a low carbon future is to electrify as much of society as possible, while at the same time making the generation as green as possible. Electricity will not only be used to run our homes and businesses, but also for transportation as we adopt electric vehicles. To achieve this electric future, we will need to make significant investments in the grid so that it's 100% reliable. Utilities will be able to help our customers and communities achieve this future by making the grid more robust, by offering new services, and by embracing storage and renewables. So this is a great time for our industry, but we have lots to do. And if we are to achieve this future and achieve it in a way that keeps electricity affordable for all of our customers. Customers trust their utilities and want and need our help as they make this transition. Customers want it to be easy and simple, and they will want different ways to pay and acquire our services. Customers want us to be innovative and to offer new solutions. They want us to be like their other service suppliers, whether that be Amazon or Apple. And as electricity becomes more and more important to the daily lives of our customers and more important to society, reliability will be a key factor. And that's where things like batteries will help us make the grid 100% reliable. So today at ENMAX, we're changing the way we invest to ensure the grid is reliable and planning for a future of 100% reliability. We're changing the way we engage with our customers, and we are changing the way we think about our service offerings into the future. We're investing more in innovative projects that will help accelerate the electrification of our economy in areas like renewables, batteries, and EVs. And we're focusing more on data and how we can use data to help customers make energy decisions and to help us make the grid more efficient and resilient. At the core of preparing for the future is customer intimacy, knowing our customers better, helping them with all their energy needs, and enhancing our service delivery so we look and feel more like other consumer-facing industries. I'm really looking forward to this discussion and to hearing from others on the panel, and thank you for having ENMAX as a participant.
So Wayne, from your comments, I infer one of your goals at ENMAX is to take all of those block heating charger plugs I see across Alberta and convert those into EV charging plugs. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, many people won't understand what block heaters are, Bob, so you may have to explain that later in the presentation.
At 20 below, whether Fahrenheit or centigrade, you understand. Ibrahim, you have really been leading a remarkable transformation at your company and participating in a transformation in society as well. If you could share your experience, please.
Thank you, Bob. I also would like to thank Dr. Lawrence and EEI for giving me the opportunity to participate. Give my sincere gratitude to you all. We recently, National Grid recently, joined the EEI, and we are proud of that. We will participate as much we have experience in an area where we have hot weather and desert, and we have a very high growth that we have. I think Wayne was talking about the speed, the quick that all customers, all stakeholders are going fast to new technologies, innovation, and everything, all of these things. National Grid is the owner and manager operator of the National Grid in Saudi Arabia. We are part of Saudi Electricity Company. We will be bearing, facing the challenges that we have to be in the middle and the integrator of how are we going to tackle all the operation of the network with all the variety of energy resources and customer needs, either industrial or commercial customers. One of the challenges that it is one of the big projects that we had done, toward our digital transformation in Saudi Arabia, is that SEC in 2020 decided to go in one project and execute it in 1 year, which is replacing all the meters to smart meters. It's more than 10 million meters in only 1 year. It was a big challenge, a big project, either from investment or timing that we have to finish, complete the project in 1 year. I think this part of projects will speed up the digitalization and meeting the customer expectations, and this is the goal of the whole project. It was a big project, challenging, but it was achieved. What we are going to share here, I think, is the future trends that are coming and that we are also thinking about and putting in our strategic plan for the company, that what are the things are coming up in the next 10 years up to 2030. We have a high growth, we have mega projects, we have our even in the pandemic, like we said, the customers' behaviors and culture of the customers, the expectations of the customers are changing now and going high. We need to be ready for that, and unless we share everything together, and how can we provide cost-effective green energy even to the customers, and how can we leverage lowering or decarbonization of the sector.
The idea of a 10 million meter conversion in 1 year, I think to all of us, probably everyone listening, is just staggering.
It was a big project. It was challenging. We faced a lot of difficulties. Even I'm not in the front row of changing the meter, but I was participating and supporting my colleagues on that project. It was a tremendous 100% of our meters in Saudi Arabia, which we replaced them in 1 year, just in order to digitalize the communication and the customer service, and to be ready to meet or enhance the customer experience for our customers and customers.
It's a logistical challenge, it's a technical challenge, but just exactly as you said, ultimately, it's a customer engagement challenge. So congratulations on that.
Believe it or not, we have to rent airplanes to transport our meters from all over the world. It's a logistic, it's a very difficult logistic project.
Anna, again, from spending some time looking at your website, you've got also really an inspiring vision and play such a critical role. If you could, again, just tell us a little bit about your company and the journey that you're on as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Bob. It's very nice to be here, and thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to discuss the customer aspect of some of the dramatic change we see going on. I think that's the most important aspect, having a long background in sales business. So I think that makes this extra interesting. Vattenfall is a European energy company. We are an integrated energy company, which means that we go from the business where we develop, build, and operate energy production and heat production. We are owning and running distribution grids, and also do sales of energy and energy-related services to all kinds of customers. So consumers, B2B clients, but also large industrial corporations. And we combine that also with the trading operation when it comes to commodity trading. So we are still very much an integrated energy company, and I think that also serves us well in the transformation that we now see. And the reason I think that is that we are in the beginning only of a very fundamental transformation in all parts of the world, but it's very tangible in the energy industry, I think. And that transformation is basically about mitigating the challenges that the climate and the climate impact brings on us. And it's about rebuilding or reshaping large parts of the energy production and the way that we can actually transmit this energy to the customers in this new renewable world that is emerging. And then also reshaping large part of other industries where electrification actually is one of several enablers. And this transformation is going on in a quite limited period of time in history if you compare to how these businesses have developed. So I think that puts a lot of demand on all of us being in the energy industry one way or another, but it's also a tremendously big opportunity, I would say. I think there are a couple of things that are driving this opportunity and that we are trying to capitalize on in Vattenfall. And the first one is, of course, the alignment and the commitment to phase out fossil fuels in the world and limit the CO2 emissions and other kind of climate impacting emissions. But I think the technology development is also happening very rapidly, and the cost for renewable technologies in all parts of the value chain is decreasing a lot and continue to do so. The third one is the customer demand, where at least my experience is that there is a totally different willingness these days from the customers to actually pay for products and services that are considered to have a minimal CO2 footprint. And that was not the case before. In Europe, we have another thing working in the same direction, and that is the CO2 emission trading system, which puts a price on CO2 emissions. So that also redirects investments in these industry sectors, of course. And finally, we see some changes in the financial market. What are you going to use the money for is the first thing these days. And depending on if it's fossil investments or renewable investments, the dialogue looks very different. And when the financial market starts to regard something as a risk, then things usually happen fast. So I see all of these dynamics happening at once. In Vattenfall, we have an aim to enable a fossil-free living in one generation. That is what is guiding us, and that is our business strategy. We do that in our own operations, but also by enabling our customers to also make these changes in their businesses. In our own operations, we are rebuilding or developing new generation assets, focusing on mainly offshore wind. We're one of the 3 largest offshore wind developers in Europe. We're also focusing on rebuilding the heat systems and the heat grids that we are owning, and divesting or closing down things that are not fitting into this strategy, which is mainly things that are fueled with fossil fuel. On the customer side, we are working in order to develop and offer solutions to all kinds of customers. To consumer, it's of course electricity and heat, but also electric car infrastructure charging services, and other kind of energy efficiency services. The same goes for B2B clients. And when it comes to industrial clients, we have started a number of cooperations where we can support by electrifying their industrial processes and thereby help them reach the CO2 ambitions that they have in their business operations. So that's a very sort of a short summary of where we focus our efforts. And I think in relation to the discussion we're going to have here today, I think that the quote that you made initially on the expectation that comes with all these new technologies and the interactions that we are used to have online, for example, they are very reasonable. And we all have them as individuals. So of course, our customers have those expectations on us as well. And we have to find a way to support all kinds of customers in this journey, the ones that are the front runners and also the ones that might be a little bit more skeptical to this new technology. And we have to support them through the entire journey. And I think that that is in many ways challenging. We see regulatory impact, new competitors, technological breakthroughs, and different starting positions in our different countries. But I think although it might be a complex journey, it's also a very interesting one and a very rewarding one. And we are for sure enjoying it at Vattenfall.
Very good. So you touched on technology, obviously, public policy, the financial community, debt and equity, but fundamentally customer expectations. One of the things that to me is interesting is in the regulatory model, how much flexibility do we have to essentially segment or differentiate among customers? And in the United States, the word we struggle to get away from is ratepayers. We think of our customers, not ratepayers. Sounds like that's a challenge you're really leading Vattenfall through as well.
Absolutely, for sure. And I think that there's a lot of segmentation to be done when it comes to customer behavior and preference. And we have been spending quite a lot of time and effort over the last year to make sure that we have a data-driven approach when we develop our customer offers to different customer groups. So they vary quite a lot.
Great. We are already starting to get some great questions coming in through chat, but I want to go back to a point that Ibrahim made, that we're doing so much of this work during the year of COVID. And I just talk specifically, if you could, each of you, about how you managed through COVID and we did extraordinary things just in terms from a company perspective, supply chain, but how you worked with your customers during this period when really what we do matters perhaps more than it ever has. And Ibrahim, you brought up the subject, so let's start with you.
Oh, yeah. I remember last year, it was a challenge not only for National Grid, but even globally. We have communicated with so many peers, companies, and it was difficult. It's not. We are the grid operator. We have to maintain the country in light, and everybody at home. Everybody staying at home, even in the lockdown. So it was a very big preparation that we did for this period. We put all the mitigations that we can manage the network and assure that power and electricity is reaching every customer at home. It was not easy, but luckily we prepared a good plan, and I think the early that you prepare for these kind of pandemics is very important. I guess we were lucky that we started in January here in Saudi Arabia, where we just started the lockdown on mid of March. So it was we had a preparation for about 8 weeks to do that, and we were perfect in doing everything, having the backups in our operation, managing our resources. How are we going to manage, and if we lose some of the resources, what are we going to do? But it was a very brilliant plan that we did last year, and even at the time of the pandemic, we were requested by the regulator to present our plan, and it was compared even with our other entities and companies in the country, not only in electric sector, but also other operating companies. And it was like just a model, because we felt that our role in the pandemic as providing electricity to everybody is very important, and we have to keep everybody relaxed and connected to the network and connected to the world through the internet and everything. So it was difficult. We were proud that we did a very good plan, and it was even implemented well. We lost some, the commercial and industrial load were shut down for some time. We concentrated in the residential, but even though our daily forecast, weekly forecast for the network and how to manage it, how to operate it, it was a very outstanding, outstanding performance. We got only 2% error of our forecast, even with the lockdown, with the changes. But our team was doing well, using the best tools and best knowledge to forecast the load and make sure that the network and the operation of the network is secure and reliable and reaching everybody. It was difficult. The logistics were difficult. Even we stopped. Some projects are delayed because of the logistics, but keeping the network in operation all the time, that was the main subject or the main goal that we have to keep last year, because it's something abnormal happened without any notice. But the good thing is that we prepared ourselves before of that. We put all the expectations, and we put all the mitigations for all the challenges that we thought that we will face.
Your forecasting sounds brilliant. One thing I think most utility companies do very well is plan and plan for contingencies. We turned out we actually had a pandemic plan that we were able to activate, and the additional feature that we added was very sharp customer focus, working with the customers as well as through the technical issues. Wayne, how did things play out for you? I mentioned I crossed the border just before it closed, and but was glad to be able to spend some time in Alberta and British Columbia first.
Yes, hopefully you can come back soon, Bob. Like Ibrahim, our initial focus was on two things, really on safety of employees and making sure that they could work and provide the essential service to our customers, and on reliability. And I think it became abundantly clear quickly when we all had to work from home how important it was to make sure that electricity was there for customers. And like everyone, we saw industry demand decrease substantially, and that was largely replaced by residential demand, which went up substantially. And the focus was really on customer support. What could we do to help customers? It was, clearly a time where great uncertainty. So we put in place, along with governments in all our jurisdictions, plans in place to allow customers to defer their electricity and gas bills if that's what they needed, both residential customers, but also commercial customers. So really our focus was on affordability and what we could do to help customers with their energy bills. That worked out very well. We've seen really good response and uptake on that by customers who needed some relief. It also made us be a little more agile. So we were able to offer more digital solutions to customers, give them access 24 hours, use technology like self-serving options for customers. So it really accelerated our adoption of digital solutions, which was clearly a benefit to customers and will be a benefit into the future for us. So I would just add that, Bob, to Ibrahim.
I'd like to highlight your comment that it accelerated the transition, and I hope that agility is something we're all able to learn from and retain and apply elsewhere. Anna, Sweden took a different approach in the initial months of the pandemic, of course, but operating critical infrastructure and providing essential service, your challenges, I think, were probably just the same as Ibrahim and Wayne's.
That's absolutely true. And as Vattenfall also have operations throughout Europe, the situation looked slightly different in different countries. But basically, I think we went into a lockdown in all our countries. And even though the lockdown was not as formal in Sweden as it was in some other European countries, basically everybody worked from home just overnight. And that, of course, puts a lot of demands on us. First of all, as we already heard also from some of the other participants, to make sure that our operations are up and running, to safeguard that we have staff enough and that we protect them enough in order to run our business and secure that there is energy and electricity throughout the society and at the customer's home in order to facilitate their needs. Secondly, we also had a lot of interaction with our customers from a payment perspective, because many customers had, of course, difficulties to pay, at least after a while. And that goes for all kinds of customers, regardless if it's a consumer or a business. And we also prolonged some sort of payment terms. And also had some governmental support to do that in some of our markets as well. But then we also made sure to put additional effort on online services and online interaction with our customers. We had quite a lot of that already before, but now, of course, those channels were basically the only ones used. So to do the business online completely is something that we have done even more of during this period of time. And as we heard earlier, we probably have been fast forwarded, all of us, into this environment and into using these services. Also people who maybe did not use them before the COVID-19 pandemic. And although all of us, of course, wish that the pandemic would never, ever have been there, I think that at least that consequence might sort of fast forward us into this development to some extent.
Good. Rob, you've got visibility into so many different companies. You're on mute again.
You think I would learn the first time that occurred? Yes, I do, Bob. Absolutely. And it's really encouraging to see how well utilities all around the world did in terms of the reliability of their power systems and keeping the lights on and adjusting whether or not they had a pandemic response plan or not. And, we went into this ourselves wondering, how are we going to continue to pursue engineering and construction projects with energy, water, and telecommunications infrastructure? And we found that, yes, we're going to have to think differently about the way we bring professionals and craft together, the size of the groupings of crews that we bring together to work on joint assignments, the number of people that we limit for trucks and vehicles, and all these new protocols to be able to make sure the work environment was truly safe. But as Wayne said earlier, I mean, we had to think about accelerating some of the digital technologies we were just testing. Some of those might involve the use of drone technology for inspections, giving an operator that has a heads-up display to be able to see what the drone is seeing in real time. We're also testing and using ground-moving equipment that is remote controlled, so an operator doesn't actually have to sit in the vehicle itself. And so there are some very advanced technologies that are on the cusp of becoming more numerous in terms of commercialization, and certainly helping us think about, what does that mean on the operational side of the engineering and construction business. But in addition, I will say one thing that we did at Black & Veatch was the pandemic helped us rethink our overall approach in terms of our portfolio. So back in October, right in the heart of the pandemic, we made the global decision to no longer engineer and construct coal-fired power plants anywhere in the world. And that announcement was made public in the October timeframe. Shortly thereafter, we also released our sustainability strategy. And that provided specific goals that we wanted to commit to regarding environmental, social, and governance structures, particularly around our environmental footprint, our greenhouse gas reductions, our water use, as well as diversity in our professional ranks, our leadership ranks, and the way we engage in business and ethical business policies around the world. All of these things are part of our ESG goals. And I do believe to some extent pandemic helped accelerate some of those goals and aspirations that we announced to the market.
Thank you, Rob. Anna, you particularly mentioned the customer engagement during the pandemic. And as we continue through the rest of the discussion, I do want to highlight that I've been thinking about the pandemic in terms of physical distancing, but coming together socially within our companies, but in our communities as well. And I really appreciate that you all captured that. Let's go to questions. I think these will be in basketball jump ball questions. So feel free to jump right in. The first question: how is your company meeting the new needs and demands of millennials and younger generations, e.g., online and connected, while still remaining accessible to older generations, which might possibly include one or two of us on this meeting right now. But feel free to jump in. How are you connecting meeting demands of younger generations while still remaining accessible to the oldsters?
Hey, Bob, let me offer one thing. We've got a number of our power engineers in our power sector started to put together what they call these STEM podcasts. And they're geared very specifically towards high school and college level students to explain very complex subjects around power engineering or telecommunications or water and wastewater infrastructure. And I personally had a chance to record one of those podcasts around the situation in Texas in February when we experienced the blackouts, but also loss of water and other factors that impacted consumers throughout the state of Texas, and not just the ERCOT footprint alone. And so interested in these technologies and this infrastructure that we all deal with, particularly in the power sector. And we find it's very interesting, and it's sometimes very difficult for all of us to think about taking a very complex subject as the power grid, where we're balancing supply and demand, and explaining that on a level where a high school student truly understands and gets it and can think about it very differently. And so that's just one way we have of contributing.
So you're reaching out to high school students as future customers, but also possibly as future workers or leaders in our industry?
There's a recruiting war out there, Bob. You got to get out ahead of it.
Maybe I can add an angle, because I left the energy industry for a couple of years and worked for a fintech startup. And the reason I did it, that was several, but one of them was that I really wanted to understand what this new development and the thing that we a bit sloppy call digitalization really means for real, when it's the core of a business, the origin of it, and not something that you only sort of smear as a layer on an already existing business. And I think when I joined that company, the average age was 25, I think, of the employees. So I was the really, really, really old lady in the crowd. But I think that there are a lot of differences, but there are also a lot of similarities between the generations. And I think that if you look at what at least to me was characteristic among these young millennials and employees, was that they are expecting a kind of flexibility in terms of where to work and when to work, and have sort of an own responsibility or mission to fulfill that needs to be clear. And we might not be used to that way of working in the traditional industry. Secondly, it's very important for them in general to feel that they have an influence on something. They are part of something that matters. And we can clearly see at Vattenfall that our long-term aim to enable a fossil-free living and the things we describe around that has a lot of attraction on this generation to be part of creating or achieving something. The digital tools goes without saying, that's just the way they live. They are born and bred with that. So I think we have to accept that we are the ones that have to catch up to some extent in order to be able to communicate effectively with each other. But from a customer perspective, we of course need to be able to interact also with those who are not millennials. And maybe last but not least, I think the development that we can offer these people, the personal development, is going to be critical. They are very ambitious, and I'm impressed about the things that they achieve in a very short period of time. I mean, usually they have been working for several years. Many times they have at the same time started their own company and been the CEO of that. They are engaged in communities and they do charity work. So the individual development path, the expectation on that is very different compared to what it's been traditionally. And the sort of timing, how fast you are able to take the next step or develop into a new competence or whatever, is also much shorter than what's maybe the case for 10, 15 or 20 years ago. But the similarity is also there, because in the end we are all human beings, and the human interaction is pretty similar, regardless if you're 25 and in .com or 55 and in energy. Maslow works for all of us. So when it comes to how we tackle change or cooperation, collaboration, friction and interaction, we are very much working the same way, I would say.
That's encouraging to hear. Meaningful work, community engagement, an opportunity to develop. You mentioned Maslow and self-actualization. Is that where you were going?
Absolutely.
Great. Ibrahim, you talked specifically about your accelerated technology deployment to, I'm paraphrasing, to keep up with your customers. And of course, you're dealing with a very dynamic rising generation that is incredibly skilled and is going to be contributing to the nation and to the world. Talk about how you're engaging with those millennials.
Yeah, I agree. We have a massive new generation that we are having, either in the company or in the community itself. And I would like to highlight the engagement, especially within the companies, the engineers that we are dealing with daily. If we keep them always engaged, even us, we get bright ideas from these young people. They are the new generation, so they will help us. They will give us a big value on accelerating our digital transformation. And that's why we have in our company, we have some important initiatives and projects for the short term and the long term. And always we're trying, to engage the younger generation in these initiatives. So they will be the one who will be boosting these initiatives and achieving some great value for the company. And us as an old generation, we will be supporting and participating with them with our experience. But we have a big generation here in Saudi Arabia. They are connected online, to the world, and you don't believe it. The percentage, or if you get the rate of use of internet here in Saudi Arabia is very high, one of the top countries in the world. And the company, as a company today, ourselves, we are trying to help even in the community to provide our leverage, our coverage, footprint in the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It is a big country with a desert, small villages in the desert, and we're only recently, we're communicating with some companies. We have a communication network, but what we are trying even to use this young generation and boost them even in the villages, so that we provide an integrated services to these villages. It's a combined power and communication to help these remote areas and these young people to be educated, to help in the healthcare and even electrification of that. So we are trying to be engaged with our other partners from other sectors, not only electricity, but even communication, IT, to help something and to do something for the community itself.
Great. Wayne?
The only thing I would add is that we're doing some pilot projects that are demonstrating a little bit of what I would call innovation. So, for instance, some small communities where we're putting up solar, some EV chargers, some smart meters, and layering on top of that a network so that customers can better see their energy consumption, how they're using it within the home, what appliances, and then using that data really to help inform choices to ultimately make better uses of energy, which should result in lower costs for customers, but at the same time allowing us to think about the grid of the future, where we have a lot more distributed resources, a lot more EVs showing up in neighborhoods, and how do we manage all of that data and all of that information so that we can make sure that the grid is invested wisely, and that we don't overinvest in some areas and underinvest in other areas. So I would say the only thing that is different is that hasn't been mentioned is a growing focus on data and its importance to help customers see their own usage, but also help us understand what the future is going to hold for us.
And you mentioned pilot projects specifically. One of the things I'm interested in on our system is storage, possibly supercapacitors, to address rural reliability on these long radial lines that go up over the Rocky Mountains. And one of the opportunities potentially, since this is a customer discussion, is to engage customers in how the network works and thinking how they receive service. The challenge in the regulated world is to be able to scale, either scale or fail in ways that some of the FANG companies, for example, are able to do, and we may not be quite as able to do, with the exception of Ibrahim's very ambitious metering conversion. That's scaling at an impressive level. Here's another question, a little bit more of a data focus, but again, about customers. What kind of modeling, if any, are your companies doing for what customer behavior will look like in the next decade? Things like EV charging, rooftop solar, batteries, energy apps. So modeling to help us understand where our customers are going and get there with them.
Bob, let me add a point here. It actually builds upon what Wayne was just saying. We're not supplying the modeling as much on behaviors as much as we are on on systems. So, for example, I believe that the future of renewables will be significantly enhanced with digital technologies. So let me give an example of that. For a major financial institution, which is global, but just in the US at this point, we are putting commercial solar on their branches, on their rooftops, in dozens of states across hundreds of sites. And we're using virtual metering to measure the on-site solar power generation, digitally signing that generation and linking it to a blockchain technology to authenticate the generation of digital renewable energy credits, carbon credits, and emission footprints. So here's a way of taking something we've been doing for a few years, using data and blockchain technology, and now doing it in real time to authenticate it. That's something that we see as kind of the future of renewable energy.
Others, in terms of the customer side research, how you're thinking about customer segmentation, where your customers are going, how you're going to get there with them.
Can I give a comment here about this?
Please.
Yeah, I was going to mention, the customer segmentation, because the customer segmentation is becoming more variety. We have here in Saudi Arabia a trend that it's going. We have a big mega project. We have community projects. We have several types of segments of customers that we are going to serve. And when you have these segments, each segment will be having its own best optimized, energy resource inside the community itself or the project itself. So this is what we are, I think, thinking about. What are the trends that's coming in the next 5 to 10 years that will lead the energy structure and energy model that we have to deal with? And part of it, most part of it is that data management. I mean, data management is very important thing that will help us, model the future of how are the customers are going to behave, or how are we going to consume the energy and from which resources. So this is one part is the data management. It will help. And it will manage even the energy in the future because of different segments of customers. They will be looking for optimized cost, and they will be looking for green energy. And this is I think the future, the new generation customers' thoughts and goals in the future.
Great. And Anna, you left the sector for a while to look at things from more of a customer perspective.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that, what I bring with me is that you need to do your customer analysis, both here and now, but also in the future. So we are doing a lot of analysis in terms of segmentation and different kind of offerings to different customers. We rarely do any sort of large scale campaigns anymore to all household customers, for example. We only do targeted campaign to different target groups, and also micro campaigns to very small customer groups, because we have a sort of data-driven approach to find out, so what is exactly the most important thing for this customer group? So how do we target them with an offer that sort of meets that? But then we also look into more long-term developments, and I'm absolutely sure that when it comes to, for example, flexibility and how customers can participate in the evolving renewable markets as well. If we have enough electric cars, for example, you can use those car batteries as a flexible assets during those times when there's a lot of demand for electricity in the market. And as a customer, you can even earn some money by sort of lending your battery power. That, of course, requires automation, because otherwise it will never work. But it is there. It will not be too far away in the future. And we also see the development around, for example, solar cells, where they are now being built into the building materials of new constructions. So you can put them as a filter on a window or integrated in the material in the wall when you build a house. And if you start looking into the future and realize that once you sort of are rebuilding the infrastructure and the houses in a city, for example, this will have a huge impact, but that is a bit further down the road.
Great. We have only just a few minutes left. There are some great questions. One in terms of dealing with the moratoria that many of us implemented during the pandemic, working with low-income customers, somewhat similar. And then a good question about how you recover costs for the large investments that the industry will be making in grid modernization, EV charging, integrating intermittent resources, all of those things. So lots of discussion we could continue to have. In just a moment, I'm going to ask each of you to give us your brief parting comments, the wisdom you want most to share with the several hundred people who are participating this morning. What I would say, just in conclusion, first I'm going to quote Peggy Noonan. She's columnist for the Wall Street Journal. Last March, when New York City was shut down, she was walking around her neighborhood and talking about just the sense of just bleakness on the streets. And the first responders said the one thing that gave her hope was that the grid was working. Everything depends on the grid, the grid, the grid, the grid. And you are all stewards of that basic infrastructure. Rob, your comment about what happened in Texas and really throughout much of the nation in February is a great reminder there. The last thing, this has been a panel, we've covered a lot of ground, ultimately coming back to what the customers want now, will expect over time. One of the things that EEI has done over the last few years through a couple of iterations is really create a very sharp customer focus. And that's something that all of the participating CEOs are passionate about. The customer vice presidents meet regularly. And I would love it, I think, if we could figure out a way to get more non-US participation in those discussions that ranges from everything like design thinking to understanding what particular tools customers might want, market segmentation, as you mentioned. So just a lot of really great work and a lot of enthusiasm around our topic here today. So with that, I'm going to ask each of you again to just make some very brief closing comments, share your wisdom with our audience today.
Well, Bob, I'd be happy to start. You know, we are looking at developments that are taking place with hydrogen, particularly green hydrogen. If we can color a colorless gas, we are very bullish on the prospects that hydrogen will bring in terms of decarbonizing parts of our energy value chain, but also what they can do for the transportation sector. So if you were to spin the clock forward and the next 20 or 30 years, we believe that the future of energy will really be well embedded through hydrogen.
Yeah, I would like to add, Bob, yes, there is innovative R&D projects that are going, pilot projects, even in Saudi Arabia. We are testing. We have a project about utilizing the heat, the sand heat. We have a big sand here in Saudi Arabia, and the temperature is high, so we're trying to utilize that. The hydrogen, we are one of the largest producers of hydrogen here in Saudi Arabia. Also, there is another project that will go. So if we think about the future of energy, electricity, and if we say 240 or 250, I think there is a tremendous change will be there. I don't know how the energy mix will be at that time. Everything is evolving.
And quickly, Wayne.
Thank you. So there's three things that I think will be critical for customer experience in the future for us here at ENMAX, and I think for all of us. And they are first, customer intimacy, second, 100% reliable, and third is affordable. So customer intimacy, if we understand our customers and their needs and we're responsive to these needs, we'll be successful in the electrification of our societies and we'll have successful businesses. Next is 100% reliability. If we invest today and tomorrow in a grid that is 100% reliable, our customers won't need to worry about their energy solutions or go looking for alternative providers. They will continue to trust in their utilities and allow them to manage the complexities of the grid. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, is affordability. We need to make the energy transition affordable for everyone. That means ensuring we invest wisely with the customer front of our mind at all times, and that we invest for the future, not the past. The falling costs of solar, wind, and batteries will help to make the transition affordable and will allow a low carbon future for all. So thank you for having NMAX and myself here. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Intimacy, reliability, and affordability. Anna, you get the last word.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Well, I think I will probably end where I started. We are in the midst of a huge transformation, both when it comes to the actual production of energy, the transportation of it, and the usage of it. And it's happening all at the same time. So that provides a lot of opportunities, but it also means that we need to make sure that we can deliver what our customers are expecting throughout this journey. And there are a lot of new technologies coming in here. Some of them we already seen, for example, wind and solar power. I don't think we've seen the full potential of wave power yet, for example. And I agree that hydrogen will play an important role, provided it's produced with fossil-free electricity, because otherwise it will not be green. And then I think that the customer expectations will continue to increase. That journey is never ending. And I think we also have to acknowledge that apart from delivering a reliable and affordable energy, we also need to be open-minded to the fact that we don't know what the future customer demands will be. So we need to stay open and active and listen in to our customers continuously and make sure that we keep developing and evolving in the same pace. We have probably just started to explore the possibilities with artificial intelligence, for example. So if this conference would have been held, I don't know, 20 years down the road, maybe it would not have been us, but our hologram prints or our avatars or something participating. Maybe teleporting would still not have the sort of maturity technologically to work, but who knows?
So we will get the answer at the 25th Annual Global Electrification Forum. Ibrahim, Wayne, Anna, and Rob, it's been an absolute delight to learn from you for the last hour, and to all of our hundreds of participants in the conference. Thank you, and thanks especially to EEI and the international program, and Lawrence and his fantastic team. Be well and look forward to the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of our panelists for sharing how your companies are meeting the needs of current customers and how you are preparing for the customer of the future. I really liked your point about the importance of agility and how we can take lessons from the past year and apply them on our journey to 2050.